Just hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another wonderful Wednesday webinar here with the assembled around the UK University Challenge panel. So we have the amazing Quentin, who's a really experienced person with crowdfunding, has done some incredible stuff, works with a fantastic agency and group called We Are Fable. I'm sure he'll tell us more about. But Quentin's come to tell us about crowdfunding. He was also involved with West Impact Hubs, which should be good to hear a little bit about as well. So, Quentin, without too much further ado, thank you so much for coming. Over to you. It's now been recorded. So, yeah, tell us a bit more. How can we raise some funds to help good causes? Over.
Great. Thank you very much, Phoenix. First of all, some short preemptive apology. I'm just getting over a chest infection. So if I suddenly start coughing, my apologies. And if my children run into the back of the room, it'll be a nice BBC moment. They've just arrived home. So first of all, I guess an introduction to me. I have been working doing sales and marketing since I was kind of 19. And at some point, I was running an international magic company selling magic tricks all over the world. And I was out in Hong Kong buying magic tricks from an international toy fair, a bit like Big, running around playing with toys. And I looked at the stuff that I was taking back, and it was, 2 full containers of essentially plastic magic tricks. And I looked at it and thought, can I really continue doing this with my own beliefs and what's going on with the world? So I quit on the spot in Hong Kong. I did give them a few months notice, but I quit and I left, and I spent some time looking for another job. And that job that I found was for an organization called the Impact Hub. So if anyone doesn't know about the Impact Hub, you should definitely look them up. They're a series, a global network of co-working spaces. They actually started in Islington, but they're co-working spaces specifically for social and environmental entrepreneurs. So they started gathering people together to network, not unlike yourselves, but in physicality as well as online. And they started pulling together all the necessary things to help startups start for social and environmental causes. We've now got something like 100 around the world in cities all over the place. You can go and pop into them and go and see the talks that go on. If there's one close to you, also if you're traveling internationally. But it's a great community to be a part of. And as a part of that, there were lots of funding opportunities and things that came to us, and governments started getting involved with us to ask how we could help solve the problems that they were facing to do with climate and various other issues. As a part of that, in about 2014, I believe it was, we approached the European Union, when we could still approach them for funding, to set up an accelerator program to teach people how to run successful crowdfunders. So we work with the UK Crowdfunding Association, who are kind of a body that oversee the regulation of crowdfunding. And it was a really exciting time then. They just started doing kind of equity funding and things like that. And we curated a program that was 4 weeks long in various, evening classes, teaching people the basics and fundamentals of crowdfunding, and helped find mentors and people to put them through. Some of the ones that you may have heard of, Positive News raised upwards of £500,000 through this. It was called Rise Up. So we had a lot of really good success. I think that program alone, the people that went through it raised 2.5 million. Since then, I've gone on to help and consult with various other organisations. After that, I set up We Are Fable, that Felix introduced, which is a digital marketing company who our primary focus is social and environmental companies. They are a lot of jewellery companies and fashion companies that are trying to do better. Notably, at the moment, we're working with Loanhood, who are a fantastic company looking to change fashion and make fashion rental more popular and more available, so that to get rid of the kind of fast fashion industry. But we've worked with loads of organisations over the last 5-6 years. So today, I thought I'd come and share some of the things that I think people need to know about crowdfunding, because it is a lot of people see it as a silver bullet and they think that they can just launch a crowdfunder and they're going to raise loads of money for what they want to do. And the honest truth is, it is more complicated than that. And most people, I would say, miss the fact that 75% of the work happens before you launch the crowdfunder. That is where the majority of the work comes. And it's not only crafting your pitch, it's not only setting up the crowdfunder, but it's doing the work that comes behind it. So I just want to go through some of those things that are to do with the pre-planning. The first thing is obviously you have to have a really clear idea of what you want to achieve and what are the goals, what are the objectives that you want to do. It may be an action, it may be to set up a climate centre, whatever that is, you need to really drill down into what you want to achieve. From there, you need to do a budget and you need to figure out how much is it going to cost for you to achieve this goal. Now, the thing about crowdfunding is when you do this, you really need to come up with 3 budgets. So the first budget is essentially a skeleton budget. What is the absolute minimum that you could achieve your goals with? Now, this is normally quite lowballed. And the reason it's lowballed is because getting the crowdfunder initially going, getting over that first 30% is a key target. So you want to have something that is incredibly achievable as a first goal, because that's going to really help you get over that first milestone. And we'll go a bit more into why that's so important shortly. But the 3 budgets, you'll have a minimum skeleton budget. Then second, you'll have your kind of ideal budget. So that middle budget really wants to be what you want to achieve. And then you go for a stretch goal as well. What would the ultimate look like? What is that next big step? What the gaps between those are really depends on how much you think you can reasonably raise. As an example, the skeleton might only be 5 grand. The desired result might be 7.5. The ultimate might be 10 grand. The gaps between those might be larger, but they need to be based in reality. Lots of people go into crowdfunding thinking, oh, we're going to easily get to £30,000. It will be fine. We can do that. You need to drill down into not only how much your desired result is going to cost, but how much can you actually raise? How much do you think is out there and what can you secure? Now, the reason that this 30% is so important, most crowdfunding campaigns that get over 30% within the first few days, the first week of running, succeed. And they succeed because that momentum is there. So what needs to happen when you look at that budget and you think about how much are we going to raise, that 30%, you want to have at least that secured before you start, whether that's through friends and family, whether that's through institutional investments or match funding or whatever that might be. You need to have a really good idea that you're at least going to get there. If not, I would argue 50%. Once you get over that and people in your wider community come onto the crowdfunding page and see that you've already got that far, they're much more likely to put in because the success looks much more promising, much more guaranteed. It looks like it's already got weight behind it. So there's a big misdemeanor that people go for these huge amounts without actually looking at what they can raise and having a reasonable understanding of what's out there. We'll go into that a bit more in a bit, but you can also add future goals. It's important at that point to have stretch targets that you could add on top. You need to do all this thinking up front so that you know if you do suddenly hit that and you're astounded by the support you get, how are you going to move further? What would you do with that extra money? Because what you don't want is people coming on and going, oh, they've already hit their goal. Great, I can not put any money in. What are the extra things you can do that you can pull people in with? Now, in doing these budgets, it's important to be realistic and detailed, and you've got to take some stuff into account. These are things that I commonly see people not take into account. One is your time. Lots of people launch a crowdfunder and don't understand how much work and effort it's going to be, how much of their other work they're going to have to put to one side. If you need to budget that time into the project so that you can give it your all and make it the best, You need to do that from the very start so that you don't end up shooting yourself in the foot and not being able to deliver on what you've promised because you can't afford to take the time yourself. The second thing is the obvious, which is copywriting, scripting of the video production, video editing, all of these things that come in advance. Now, normally you're going to have to put out those costs before the project starts. So you need to think, how are you going to do that? If you're very lucky, you can find people that are close to your cause that are willing to put that time in. Often you will find people that may be willing to say they're happy to be paid after you raise the funds. But if that's the case, you need to build that into the budget and make sure that's taken into account. The delivery costs of the project are obviously the most obvious. And when you're thinking about those, as I said, try and tier them in 3 levels. So what would you do with more money? What would you do with less? And, I can't emphasize it enough. Making that first skeleton project really attainable is going to help you no end. The next bit is about rewards. A lot of people don't take account, get these amazing crowdfunders where you'll get stickers or you'll get t-shirts. One thing that I see time and time again people don't take account for is the cost of those. So if you take the example of a t-shirt, if you're going to have a t-shirt as one of the rewards, and you're saying that if somebody puts in £25, they'll get a t-shirt delivered for them, you have to take into account that that t-shirt might cost £10 to get printed. It might cost £5 for delivery costs. It's then going to take you time to pack them, go to the post office. You're then going to have the delivery costs at the post office. For that £25 that somebody has given you, you might only see £5 or £10 profit towards the ultimate project goals. Now, that might be part of your project. If part of your project is to do with awareness, having people wearing that t-shirt might be an outcome goal that's worth it for you. But you do need to think, if somebody puts in £25 and they get a t-shirt, how much is going towards the project? How much is going towards the reward? Don't get caught out. I see so many people get caught out by that. The next thing is the pitch. Now, the pitch is obviously, this is the main thing that's going to draw people in. It's a pretty simple formula with most good crowdfunders that you look at. You have the problem statement, you have your solution, and then you have a call to action. Now, in the problem statement, you need to state clearly what the thing is that you're going to solve by raising this money. And that should be shortish. If we imagine, there may be that you have 2 crowdfunding pitches in terms of videos. You may have a shorter version that is 1 minute to 2 minutes that you can use on social media, that you can network more widely. And you see this more as a trailer for the crowdfunder. And then you may have a longer one that's 5 minutes. I wouldn't go much longer than 5 minutes because I think in modern world, people's interest can fade pretty quickly. But in that longer version, you can go more into the delivery, more into the ins and outs. I would always concentrate more on the solution that you're offering than the problem. The problem statement should probably not take up more than 20, maybe 25% of the video. The vast majority of it, 50% of it, should be about the solution that you're offering, what you're going to do with the money. The last bit, the call to action, is obviously the real hook. It's the bit in the advert where they're pulling you in, where Oxfam are telling you, you need to get involved. Another thing that we found when we were doing lots of the research and talking to the Crowdfunding Association was that the word help, people often say, you can help us do this, was actually derogatory to their causes. The crowdfunders that didn't use help did much better. So talking about join us, be a part of this, you need to come into this. You need to make people, feel like they are solving it with you, and pulling them in like that is a real key element that I think people ask for help and they go with their hands out, and it just doesn't work as well. When people can see that they are becoming part of the solution, that's when you get a real hook and you get a real emotional incentive for people. from the problem statement being part of the solution. So then, in doing this, I always find that shorter is better. If you can boil that solution down to make it really, really clear, you start off with something that's 2, 3, A4 pages, and then you work it down and you whittle it down and you whittle it down. And this is the bit that's really good to workshop. Work with other people, go out to your friends. The one that I always use is my mum. If you can go out to mums and grandmas and tell them the pitch and they get it, that's a real good sign that, universally it's going to be understood. I mean, I do the same thing with my mum and technology. If my mum can't use an app, it's useless, Let's move into the pre-funding. So I'm talking about getting to this 30%. You need to really, this is before you start the crowdfunding, you need to pull your community in. You need to get them already involved, maybe a month, maybe even 2 months beforehand. Your key kind of allies, you're going to pull in right from the very start, whether that's the stakeholders, whether that's the other people you're going to work with, the other organizations. Those people need to be involved from the get-go. They need to be excited about it. They need to be telling their networks about it. And it's at this point that you need to be looking at not only your network and getting them excited about it, but what are the other networks that you can get into? Key things are looking at other people that have large email lists, large followings on social media, people that are thought leaders in the area that you're talking about. These are broadly called influencers now, but who are those people that are going to get you to the biggest audience? And in this is building your wider community that you're hoping are going to put money into this project. But the area that you need to be concentrating on are the people that are willing to pledge money before you've even launched the campaign. Who are those people? Are there organizations that might be willing to do match funding? Are your friends and family going to commit to putting £20, £50 in? And you need to make a list of those. You need to have a spreadsheet of everyone that you've talked to in advance. And, this thing, 75% of this work for these crowdfunders happens way ahead of time, way before you've launched the campaign. And you need to make sure that you have at least 30% of the money that you can almost guarantee is going to be put in the first 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. And if it's not, you've got the list and you know those people that you've spoken to. You know those people that you've sold on the story already, the people that are going to benefit from the solution, the people that are most interested. And those people, you need to be having those conversations a month, 2 months in advance, telling them how important it is to hit the 30% mark in that first 24, 48, 72 hours. Tell them how important it is that that money goes in then. And then when you do launch, those are the people that you're harassing, essentially. Let's be honest. Those are the people that you need to preempt, 24 hours before, remind them how important it is that money goes in, telling them the day before, telling them 12 hours before. And if the money's not in after 24 hours, those are the people you need to be bringing and getting to put in. You can make them feel a part of this project, telling them how much that money going in, however small it is going to help other people that maybe don't have the trust and the intimate connection to you and the project, how much it's going to help them as a proof, as the social proof of the project, the belief that it's going to happen, that it's going to succeed. This is the biggest part of crowdfunding that most people miss. They launch the campaign and then they go, where am I going to find these people? Who are they? If you're not bringing those people until you've launched, you're setting yourself up for failure, unfortunately. That's the biggest thing that we see, the biggest miss that we have. Now, there's other things about that. If you're launching, depending on what you're campaigning for, there are different crowdfunding platforms that specialize in different things. Crowdfunding.co.uk are especially good at social issues and environmental issues. The reason that that's important is they might have 150,000 people that they know have already committed to other projects. And if you can get over that 30% within that first couple of days, they are going to make you featured in their newsletter. They're going to shout about you on social media. They're going to push to the other funders that they know have already funded projects similar to yours and tell them and shout about your project. Bear in mind, in a very capitalist way, those crowdfunding associations make money out of the money that is donated. It's in their interest to see your campaign succeed. But they have so many campaigns coming up every day. They concentrate their efforts, their PR, their social teams, their email teams on the campaigns that they think are most likely to succeed. So you can game the system, you can hack the system. Getting to that 30% in that first short while means that they are going to put the full force of their organization behind you. And the further beyond that you go, the more likely they are to give you more support. Does that all make sense, guys?
Gold dust, absolute gold dust, Quentin. That's like decades of knowledge condensed. Thank you.
Good,
And
good, good.
really,
So
really, really valuable.
the
Fantastic.
next thing that I wanted to go on to, talking about these rewards and talking about, you know, we spoke earlier about the t-shirts. I can't tell you how many projects have raised the amount that they thought they were going to need, and then they find out that these costs kind of start to spiral. I'd encourage you to look at ways that you can deliver rewards and tier rewards that contribute to the success of your project without piling you with additional expenses. So there's lots of programs that I've been involved with recently where just people's names being in the front of the book, at the front of the video, the movie that's been made, was a major, you know, reward. People wanted to be involved in the project. They wanted their name to be a part of it. I recently paid £500 to one crowdfunder to be listed as one of the producers of a documentary that I particularly felt strongly about and was working on. You know, so you can tier these. Is that someone's name going on a banner? You know, what are the things that you can do? Is it that a specific reward could be producing a particular sized banner, and that their name, if somebody gives £100, their name will be on the back of that banner, so that even though they can't make it to the action, they know that they are there in spirit, you know, and that doesn't add additional cost to you. It achieves the result of the ultimate goal of the campaign without you having extra costs applied. So in tiering those rewards, you have to think what of your community, what do you think the kind of first reward should be? Is that a £5 donation? Is that a £10 donation? Do you want to set the first bar at £20 because you're very ambitious and you think that your community has that money? Setting that first rung, it's important to get it right, because if you set it too low, you'll find that people that might have given you £20 only give £5 because that's the first point of interaction. It's the first way to get in. So you have to think carefully about where you put that. As you go up through those, they obviously have to gain prestige. They have to gain value to the person that is putting that money in. And having a spectrum probably between 20 and £50, I would say, is where a lot of the donations come in, at that kind of range. In most campaigns, it depends. We did the embodiment convention, and actually the average order for that was kind of £250, £500. And so what they were doing there was they were having live streams of talks, and for £200 you've got a certain number of talks, and for £500 you've got all the talks. And they knew that that was what the value was, what people would get out of it. And so they priced it there. I can't tell you exactly what those prices are, because it depends on what value people can get out of it and how much disposable income you think your community has, how passionate they feel about the cause, and what is the value that you can give back to them. But also on the other end, don't lowball yourself. Do have some rewards which are 5 times, 10 times what you think the average is going to be. Because you'd be surprised how many people, if they really believe in the cause, may have £200, £500, £1,000. You have to create you have to create the value for them coming back. Are they going to be listed as one of the key people? Is someone who's going to speak at your event going to personally name anyone that puts in that amount of money? What is it that you can provide to them to give them the esteem as being a bigger part of the project, more recognized? I think if we're talking about crowdfunding for actions, climate centers, protests, things like this, it's probably more along those lines rather than physical goods. But maybe there are physical things that you can come away. Are there mementos from the event? Are there signed posters by the key speakers? If you've got, I don't know whether it's Jeremy Corbyn or whoever you might be able to get to talk to the mayor of a town that's coming to an opening. Are they willing to sign 20, 30, 40 posters of the event for you? And those could be one of the higher prizes. It's something that means a lot to that cause without actually costing you a huge amount of money, but comes with a lot of prestige. So I think that's important in creating those reward structures. You need to create a span. Don't be afraid to go large, and be careful where you put the entry level in. All of these things, everything that I've talked about, all of this happens long before you've launched a crowdfunder. Once you've created a video that you think is powerful, once you've created the site and you're ready to launch, you're getting in touch with all the people that have pre-pledged money and you're ready to go. Now's when you need your media plan laid out. You need to know what you're going to post, where you're going to post it, when you're going to do it. The short trailer is probably the first thing that goes out, and we can talk a bit about Facebook and Instagram and clever ways to use that. But beyond that, you need a calendar of events that stretches over time. Now, most crowdfunders these days run for 30 days. There are many very successful runs that might run for 2 months, but 2 months is an awful long time to be honest, be really under pressure. You have to bear in mind when you launch one of these crowdfunders and you're refreshing the page every 30 seconds to see if somebody else has put money in, 2 months is an awfully long time to be doing that. I'm not joking. You wake up in the middle of the night and turn your phone on to see if there's been an extra 50 quid put in. It's quite stressful. I would say that 30 days is a good amount of time. And when you're doing that, another key trick is you ideally want that 30 days to span 2 paychecks. So most people get paid on either the first of the month or the last Friday of the month. Starting on one of those days and finishing on one of those days is a key way that you can instigate and push people and find that opportune moment to get people to remind them. If you're reminding them on the last day of the campaign that their bank account's empty, it's not ideal. If you can get it to span over 2 of those paydays, it does really work. I know that everybody's not on a salary, but it's surprising how much that does actually really work. When you launch, you need to think about what you're going to post each day, each week, and have updates about the project, updates about what's going on. But you also need to build into that. We've hit 30%, we've hit 50%, hit 75%. We've only got this amount to go. We're on to our stretch target. We only need X amount more to get beyond this point. All of those ideas for posts, all of those reasons to update your community and give people a nudge, all should be planned out in advance. You don't want to be sitting sweating in your office thinking, what am I going to say? You can come up with a whole list, and there's great websites that will give you loads of ideas for that content. But telling people we are only £1,000 off our target, off your middle budget, off your next target, that's only 50 of you giving £20. whatever that is, putting those things up at the opportune moment, nudging people, going back to the list that you had before, nudging those people. It'd be really helpful if you put this money in right now, because if we hit this target right now, that's a huge goal, that's a huge mark. And when people do put money in, thanking them and thanking them publicly. If they've given you their name and they are willing to, and you can go onto Facebook, you can go onto Instagram, you can go onto your group WhatsApp chat and say thank you so much to Phoenix for giving some money towards this project. It was really helpful. We really appreciate it. We're only £200 off our next target if anyone else can help. All of these things, you need to have a big Excel document full of all of these things that you're going to do. And this is a lot of work, If you're looking at 350 people donating, and when you're budgeting, think about what the average donation might be, how many of those people you might need, how many people you need at each point on the journey, and then, instigating those moments. This is a lot of work over that time. It's only 25% of the whole work, because most of it should have been done in advance. But having those all laid out, having the system laid out, so that when you wake up in the morning, you go through everyone that donated yesterday and you thank them all as publicly as you feel they be comfortable with and you're comfortable with. But going through that process gives you the task for the day. The worst thing is waking up in the morning and going, we're £150 off the target. How am I going to get there? And trying to think about that on the fly, because that becomes really stressful. If you know what your tasks are, it's to thank people, it's to post this next bit of content that's an update. Who are the key people that can give updates? Are there people that are going to be speakers that are involved, that are influencers? If there are, spread them out. So there's maybe 1, 2, 3 of them a week to shout about your crowdfunder, but spread those out. Don't do them all in the first week, because then you'll end up in week like 3, if you're doing it for a month, will be much slower. You want to have the content. You want to know what the tasks you're going to do to try and instigate the next, investments, the next donations during that week. So that it just becomes an automatic process. You've got something you go through, you know what the next bit of content you're going to do is. And, you're going to run into, someone's going to tell you that they're going to do a video for you promoting your crowdfunder, and they'll say they'll do it on Friday and they won't do it for another week and a half. And you have to take account for that and try and have as many of them stored up, ready to go before that comes about, so that you're not chasing people on the day that you need it. The more of that pre-planning you can do, the more that you can have it ready to go, the less stressful you're going to find the day-to-day of refreshing your screen. I think it's probably, I've been chatting for 40 odd minutes. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
Brilliant. Let's that absolutely, smasher after smasher really is. You've got it down to the science. That's incredible. Thank you so much, Quentin. So, folks, if you've got a question, there's a reactions button down the bottom. You can just wave your hands, but it's easier for us to sort of take if you use a reaction down the bottom.
Give us an example of one of the ones that you've done that we'd know.
So Positive News was a huge one. I think they did 500,000. The embodiment conference.
I don't know that. Any I'd know.
Okay. Positive News. You must have seen the newspaper, Bieber, over the years. We've had it at the various centres. Positive News newspaper.
Oh, okay.
That was a really huge one. This embodiment conference was a conference about meditation, becoming more embodied, to do with martial arts, trying to get people more in tune with their body, out of their kind of heads and more physical space. I mean, I was incredibly impressed. They raised over £250,000, but they, again, they built this community. They prepared everyone. They were telling people for 4 or 5 months in advance, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. This is our plan. We're launching this on this date. This is what you're going to get, way before they launched and went through. More recently, we've done several really successful ones for various books. A guy called Adrian Fisk who did a book called Until the Last Oak Falls, which was about the 1990s kind of tree protests, Newbury bypass and stuff like this. We helped him both pre-crowdfunder and after it. There's a couple of other books that we've been working on about the 90s kind of protest movements and various other things. Lots about squats in the 90s and things. And again, you know, so another important thing that all these guys did was before launching, they went and they found all the Facebook groups that were dealing with these subject matters. They found those and they started becoming active in those communities, answering people's questions, you know, becoming involved in it, not just shouting about this is what we're going to do, but trying to help other people with their knowledge so that they were making themselves someone in that community beforehand. And it comes very naturally if it's something that you're incredibly interested in, and it's fracking, for example. There are fracking groups all over the country. How can you get involved and give value to those groups about other things that are going on, about successful tactics that have happened, whatever those things are, to ingratiate yourselves into those groups and widening your network of people that you can then tell about this, places in which you can thank people and say, thank you so much to the members of this group that have already donated such and such, such and such. If you haven't seen it already, here's our crowdfunding video. This is what we're doing. We'd love you to get involved. Come and be a part of this.
You know? I have one there for you. While anyone else, you know, do put your hand up if you want to bung a question in. But the reactions thing down the bottom there as well. One question: you mentioned crowdfunder.co.uk. I put that in, but there's quite a number of different platforms have blossomed up, shall we say? I think GoFundMe was one. I remember the Love Activists when they did some things over the Christmas once, got a massive amount through GoFundMe and others. Is there any ones that you think are slightly better than others? The top three, and they all take a different percentage from you according to how much. So you mentioned that they promote you, the crowdfunder.co.uk. Once you reach a certain point, I didn't know that, so that's good to know. Any particular ones you think are better than others, or you'd recommend, or?
So I haven't worked with crowdfunder.co.uk in a little while, but they were always fantastic, and they did do a lot more social and environmental projects, as opposed to things like Kickstarter are more geared towards product-based crowdfunding. So we've had great success for the photo books, for example, but they do have more of a leaning towards physical products and technology and so on. It's important, you know, that there are new crowdfunding. So crowdfunding kind of got open source. The technology behind it has kind of been released. You can get plugins to go on websites and so on. So there are new crowdfunding platforms popping up all the time. It's not a small part of the project to look at other similar projects that have run and where did they do it? What was the success of them? You can get in touch with the people that ran those and say, how was such and such a platform to work with? How much did they help you? How much support did they give you? Certainly, if you're working with ones that are in the UK, you are probably going to get more support than if you're working with American-based organizations and your crowdfunder is geared more towards people in the UK. That's an important factor because they might have 500,000 people on their list, but if most of them are in Illinois, then they're probably not going to be as interested. So I'd say there's a process there, looking for similar projects, seeing where they were funded, what platform they used, talking, if you can, finding the people that ran those and asking them how did they find that platform, and you know how big a community was there. And talking to the platforms themselves and saying, you know, how much help do you think that you can give us? Because you will find, and it does go in ebbs and flows. If you can find a really good, so normally when you launch a crowdfunder, you get someone who is kind of a project lead on that end, on the platform's end. Finding someone there that really believes in your project could be a great help. You know, if they're talking to you lots, if they're giving you lots of good advice, that's better than somebody that's just going to let you, you know, run off on your own and do it ultimately.
And could this be scaled down to do a smaller one?
Habiba, should we just jump? We're a couple of people got their hands up, so let's just you've had one. Let's hop over to the University Challenge panel. AW in sunny Colchester, you've got a question there, and then Rosie Bell, over. AW.
Yeah, I'll just add into what's just been said. We have had a couple of successful campaigns through crowdfunder, and one thing they do offer is they've got some schemes where you can get match funding, which proved useful. So I think one campaign we raised 3,500, and then got another 3,500 by a match funder. So
Brilliant.
that's useful to do. The only thing I would say with crowdfunder is I think they're a bit of a victim of their own success, because if you don't plan it in advance and know all your questions, as has just been said, if you're trying to get answers to questions while the campaign is going on, they're very slow.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it comes back to the pre-planning, but you're right about the match funders. Crowdfunder always used to be, and I'm not quite up to date on what they have right now, but they always had lots of kind of institutional investors that were there, whether it was banks or other philanthropic organizations that were willing to match fund certain projects. So talking to several platforms, asking them about what match funders they might be able to help you with, what schemes you might come under, and doing that in advance, as you said, because you may find that you can make a slight tweak to what you're offering to deliver to meet a match funder's their own goals, and it may not be that much of a tweak that you need to make to do that, but if you launch and then you go and look for that, you'll find that you're backtracking and may have missed out on some match funding, by not including some key objectives or key goals.
Brilliant. Rosie Bell, then Jamie, then Jackie. Unmute, Rosie.
Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering, to me, it seems like there would be, obviously some campaigns are more sort of innately crowdfundable or suited to a crowdfunder than others. Has that been your experience, and what's your sort of advice for kind of crafting the message of those kind of just slightly less suitable things towards the optimal kind of crowdfunding? What kind of campaigns are the most suited?
I think that's definitely very true. And I think you've got to ask yourself the question at the beginning, can you find other projects that are similar, that have already, the proof's in the pudding, that have already succeeded in doing that? If you're looking at doing something totally new, feel free to get in touch with me through Phoenix. I'd be happy to help anyone here if you wanted to run things past me. But there is definitely a kind of formula, to crowdfunding. It is things that are joint efforts. That's what people want to be involved in the production of something. It doesn't have to be. The most success has come from physical products that people have done. Those are the ones that have earned £10 million and so on. When it's more based around a desired result, whether it's community centre or I've seen pubs bought on crowdfunding networks. I think a lot of things can be geared towards crowdfunding, but not everything. It has to be something where you have something that the community wants to see happen enough that they are willing to put into that, and that they in some way are going to get some value out of. Now that value is kind of a movable object. In some ways, it may be membership to something. It may be some exclusive offers. It may be that they are personally getting, deeper into that. In other ways, it may be that they just want to be a part of the creation of a documentary, of a movement, of a space. But yes, the ones that I've seen do really well are projects where it's bringing a community together in terms of what we're talking about, that it's solving a problem. I mean, and that can just be that people aren't able to get to an action. They aren't able to get somewhere to do something, but they want to be. And so if you can give them a tangible way I think it's important to make it somewhat tangible. You know, what are they contributing towards? There was a North American pipeline on the Indian reservation, and there were lots of really clever ones that were for quite specific things. You know, you could put £50 or £100 in to help an activist from another part of the US get to the protest.
Dakota Access Pipeline. Yeah, brilliant.
You know, so people found ways. There was a cause, there was an ultimate goal of that succeeding, and then people found ways to make something tangible that people could feel that they had made a tangible result towards that ultimate goal. You know, although it wasn't directly fulfilling the ultimate goal of kicking the company out, it was providing a way for them to feel they had done something tangible towards that result. So I think that is important, that there is a value that when people feel that it's going towards something that they can talk about, you know.
Should we come over to Jamie and then Jackie? Jamie?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just quickly on that last point, actually, if you say £50 will help an activist to get somewhere, does that have to be indicative, or do you then have to spend that money on that thing?
I think morally you would have to. Yeah, I think morally you would have to make that part of it.
Yeah.
There's maybe another point here that. So I'll talk in slight tangent, but for example, delivery costs. When we had the example of the T-shirt, now one thing that we often do is there's an extra delivery cost normally. So if you get a T-shirt, you'll donate that amount, and then it might cost you £3 to send the T-shirt, but you might charge £7, and that extra £4, part of that might be profit towards the project, and part of it might be paying for the person that has to do the fulfillment. But so there are ways that you can bake other costs into it and potentially have some profit from that. You know,
right.
I wouldn't feel it was morally objectionable if you said you're putting £50 towards getting an activist there, and then you hire a coach, but actually the coach cost you less. You know, the coach seat cost you less than that person put in, and that was essentially profit from that part.
Yeah. But the platforms let you have specific sort of products that you can, so you
Yes.
don't have to keep track of what people say they're giving it for. They'll tell you.
No. So you'll create these rewards that we were talking about, and people will pay specifically for one of those rewards. And you know, those rewards can be you know, we've done some recently where there's just a donation option, and we've actually got some fantastic donations that people don't actually want the rewards that come out. But normally there is something in there which is, this is specifically what that's getting you. And quite often those things stack on top of each other. So reward 1 might be a T-shirt, reward 2 might be a T-shirt and an album, reward 3 might be a T-shirt, an album, and your name on a poster. You know, so they can build up like that. But again, you need to go back and make sure that the economics of those back up.
I've asked 3 questions. I'll just break with the one I was going to ask is, what specific advice would you give to someone who's doing a political campaign where it's sort of by definition a bit more open-ended and a bit less tangible?
So there's a really interesting couple in North London. I'll have to look up their name and send it out, but they're doing the campaign for installing solar on top of the roof.
Yes, yeah, I know that.
North London.
Awesome
Again, I'll find the name and send it to Phoenix so that he can send it in the chat. But they've got a fantastic short course on actually making campaign videos. But so they'd be a really interesting one to look at and see how they've essentially taken a kind of political idea and got people to pull into that. I think the political campaign, you know, you'd obviously be probably primarily looking at people that are already looking to vote for that party, already interested in that. But then I would try to make some of the things tangible. You know, if we raise 50 grand, we can do this big rally. If we raise 100 grand, we can have X number of billboards. Trying to make those things tangible. You can help us get a billboard in the front of the main shopping centre. This is, what one of the first levels of the campaign to get there. So I'd be looking at how can you take the tangible things from that and say, this is one thing we could do. That's the next thing we could do. If we get this amount, we're going to have an advert on during question time. We can't have adverts during question time, but whatever that is, trying to build those into tangible things that then what it does is it means that when that does happen and that billboard goes up, they then become your advocate and they say, I helped pay for that. I helped do that. I'm doing my bit. It gives them something to be proud of, something to feel that they've invested in. And so does that help? Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Should we come over to Jackie there? He's had a hand up for a bit, and we're going to question towards the end, and we'll roll on for another 5 minutes or so. Jackie.
Thank you, Quentin. This is just brilliant. Thank you, Phoenix, for organising. It's just so good. We have probably about 4 or 5 projects that we'd like to crowdfund for. Would it be wise to do them separately rather than trying to get funding for multiple projects at the same time?
I think that probably comes down to what they are and whether they can be combined. I think if you are going to do multiple projects, if you can build them, the problem would be what happens if you only get the skeleton budget? What happens if you only get half the budget? Do only 2 or 3 of those projects get funded? Maybe that's the way you structure them. If I was going to do them separately, you'd want to lengthen out the period of time over which you do them. But another important thing is when you are doing this, you will get the email addresses of the people that have donated. So, if you can build on this over time and build those people into the community, again, go back. If project 1 is successful and you can go back and say thank you publicly to all the people that helped make that happen and have a wrap-up video which says, this is what you helped us do. We're going to be launching another crowdfunder shortly to do something else. Play on your successes and build on that to build momentum and pull those people into the community. Thanks so much for helping us achieve this. Can you help us achieve this next goal? I would probably look at it as a kind of community building exercise to build more and more funders, as you go along.
Brilliant, because the community building piece is a really big part of it. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. So, Jackie, I think you're down in Falmouth, isn't it? Is it the Falmouth?
Norfolk.
Norfolk. Norfolk. No.
Yeah,
Cool.
So I think maybe is Jenny Haycock's connected with you? Yeah, so Jenny's involved in the same sort of suite of projects.
We love Jenny. So just a question here over to Quentin. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely incredible. I mean, it's just like pearl after pearl of wisdom, absolute gold dust, really. I mean, you've studied the form. You are a master of the art. I suppose my question would be, I've learned a lot. I've done a few over the years, and I've also rushed it very badly and rushed ones out and not had the time, haven't pre-planned it, done this. And we've had some, we raised money for a marquee for one exhibition we did, which was great and it went well. But other ones I've definitely rushed. So I've learned a lot tonight. My question would be, from what you're saying, this is quite a full-time job for someone who is going to be, whatever it is, the project lead on the crowdfunding for your project, to plan this out over the months to get it together. Is there, does We Are Fable offer this service, which is Quentin's group, but also is there our actual job roles? What's the name of it? A social media manager that your group can hire and say, look, if we raise this £5,000, we will give 10%, 500 quid towards you as the crowdfunder project manager who's going to stay with it over the months and do all of those amazing things you said, put that Excel spreadsheet together and the rest. Is there groups that do this, or do you guys at We Are Fable do that? Because I think we need one of them. Over.
Yeah, fair play. So we do that. We have done that. We kind of continue to do that. The honest truth is, paying somebody who is an expert in doing this is going to get expensive quite quickly. Teaching yourself to do it is far better. I'm always open to having conversations and spending an hour on the phone with any of you if you want to run stuff past me, I'm happy to do that pro bono and talk to you about your project and give you some feedback. I'm really happy to do that. And there's more in-depth tips that we can do. There are agencies that just specialize in doing your crowdfunders. I think you'll find that most of those are too expensive unless you're looking to raise kind of significant amounts of money over £50,000 or something. I think it would just not be have the best return on investment. There are some fantastic free courses that you can do out. Crowdfunder and various other people have free kind of online YouTube courses and stuff. Really, I think having someone who's a consultant like myself to have a chat with beforehand, and maybe during that pre-planning process, to spend a couple of hours saying that's a good idea, that's an awful idea, concentrate more on this, have you thought about that, is really valuable. You'll find that a lot of the crowdfunding platforms will probably provide you with somebody to do that role, because it's in their interest, because they will make a percentage. And again, you need to take the percentage that the crowdfunding organization is going to take into account in your budgeting. But then there are specific people, video editors, producers, directors, or script writers. You might find that they're multi-talented and they are in fact kind of your bid writer, or they are somebody that normally writes your kind of proposals and stuff. Maybe that they're a graphic designer that you work with. And then on the other end, the kind of social media, if you're not au fait with social media and social media marketing, it is really worth getting someone to go over and give you the best practices, the top tips on how to do that. You will normally find that I spend money on advertising crowdfunding projects that we work on. If you get it right, it's fantastic. But if you're looking at raising smaller amounts of money, spending money on that will not be as well spent as your time on the phone talking to people. It would be better to use that money to reach out to people and do that on smaller projects. If you're looking at doing a larger project, if you're looking at doing a political campaign, for example, and you can tap into those partners, whether it's the Green Party, whether it's Greenpeace, whoever those people are, if you can get them to help you with the social media marketing, you'll find that works really well. We are available to help kind of run advertising on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, so on and so forth. The honest truth is you will get pretty far doing it yourself, and you're going to build up better skills to do it better in future. And I think if you're looking at kind of less than £50,000, you're better off talking to somebody like me about upskilling you and teaching you the tips and tricks, rather than paying someone £250 a day to do it for you. I think that a lot of that will be time that you may well have, and budget that you might not have so accessible. But that depends on how you're budgeting, I guess.
Cool. Well, absolute gold dust all the way through. Thank you so much, Quentin. Really appreciate your hour of your precious time. Quentin helps many different groups and has helped launch some amazing projects over the time. So thank you very much for that. I think we've done about the hour and just after. If anybody does want a quick parting say goodbye or comment or anything, or if you've got to beam out. Thank you very much. Really useful night. This will be up in a few days on the YouTube, I think. And next week we have Ed Gemmell, who is the leader of the new climate party that launched about, I don't know, it was during the heat waves the other year, actually. But they are a new political party trying to get the message out about climate and associated things that we really need to do for the environment for the future. So tune in next Wednesday for Ed Gemmell. Okay, thank you very much to everyone for coming. Give us an hour of your precious time. Have a great night. Keep networking. Send us your email if you can, and set up a centre near you and get a crowdfunder going. Be a mothership for many other projects. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Big up, Quentin. Okay, I better stop recording.
Bye.
Take care.